guess you're used to your workplace by now. Well, good. I hope you learned the map by heart and know where the things are. Good for you. You already know where the things are. The palace is beautiful, isn't it? There are so many rooms, and many of them have their own individual style. The palace is just so buried in the inside. Yeah, it was certainly nice here. But after one incident, things went wrong. It all started when one of Froggle's daughters went missing. As you know, the whole family was out walking in their garden one late night at a time, and the daughter just went missing. These were hard times for a man like Froggle. He had always been cheerful, but then he fell into the deepest depression. He even closed the fairy kingdom from free visits. Then there were many interrogations, investigations. Froggle was so fed up with it all, but he held on trying. After the incident, he immediately went to the police, to a detective agency, but it got him nowhere. Absolutely no evidence. But in the end it turned out to be one of the detectives disappeared. As a result, surveillance cameras were placed in the palace and around the grounds. And moreover, even in the air ducts, motion detectors were installed. And so it came the end of the quiet life of Froggle and his family. Over time, of course, things calmed down a bit. But it wasn't like before anymore. Still, it was a profound loss. Then they started hiring guards for the fairy kingdom, because all sorts of hooligans started showing up in the garden and vandalizing it at night. Perhaps those were the very people who destroyed the palace, or rather, they are. But when asked why they do it, they refused to answer. But as Froggle II said himself, who disappeared with his family and courtiers, could tell us about it. This happened after the murder of the king's chief servant. A few days after the crime, the entire palace was suddenly abandoned. Froggle and the family fled, taking almost nothing from the palace. The palace and its entire grounds were left completely unattended. And then the vandals came, and you know the rest. It's hard to figure out why the family ran away. They could have fled either from the vandals, or because they could have committed these murders. But I can't believe they could have done that. I mean, they certainly couldn't have done it. I know them. I was acquainted with all of them. Well, I can suspect one crazy old woman, the king's mother-in-law. But I'm sure even she is not the murderer. And there's something else notable in this whole story. There were those toys in the kingdom. The ones you heard myths about. The ones that supposedly came to life and so on. They were called Froggy, Kitty, Croco, and some kind of gnomes. So one day a guard noticed that they seemed to be walking around at night, and he even told a technique to protect himself from them. He was sent to a psychiatrist for a checkup. Then the second one came in, kept quiet for the first time. Then, after the murder, he talked about how he heard that the servant has been killed by Froggy. He heard it straight over the phone. They began to suspect him, and for 3 days they wouldn't let him leave the palace grounds. But the detective said... Guess what he said? Oddly enough, yes, and the detective was trying to prove something. Oh? What's there to tell? Why would you need it anyway? Well, why do you need it? Alright, listen. Well, in a nutshell, if Froggy comes, turn off the light. He's blind and can't see you in the dark. But don't go where it's bright, he'll see you there and attack you. About Kitty and Croco, they can see very well in the dark, and you have to turn on the lights when they come in. It kind of blinds them. Ridiculous, right? And there's something about the gnomes that says something about a music box. It has to be turned on for them for some reason. That's all. Oh yeah, and one more thing about the philosopher. He's not making any noise in his workshop, is he? He was drunk again this afternoon and shouted something about curses and chrysanthemums. And then he made such a noise that half the palace must have heard that. Well, if it doesn't make any noise, that's good. Oh, by the way, I have brought you something. See that little box on the table? I thought I'd bring it to you. If you get bored, you can wind it up. Oh, but don't forget about the work. Don't give the box too much attention. Alright, you got work to do. See you later. surprised to see huge puddles in the morning. I think it's going to rain all night. Oh, not a big deal. Didn't really need it there anyway. We haven't changed the bulbs in most of the rooms yet. We'll change them sometime later. Did you know that the characters in the play, Froggy and Friends, are based on, those old walking toys? However, we added new characters. But once upon a time, these were King Froggy's first favorites. He loved them so much. And then he passed away. His castle was abandoned as his son Froggy II moved into a new palace. Froggy I had a heart disorder, so he tried to stay calm while doing anything and everything. Did you see the castle behind this palace? That is the castle of Froggy I. He lived there with his twin wife, and he carried a book with him everywhere. It must have been his diary, or rather his notebook. But because of some trouble, the queen became very angry and quarreled with Froggy. She probably decided to take it out on him. She was always on the edge of filming, in general. How could King Froggy only fall in love with her? She was angry because she had lost her slipper, the pink one. She had been naming her slippers, which were in the shape of cats, since she was a little girl. And she called them Kitty and Catty. Funny, isn't it? I don't know just why Kitty came to be considered a toy, but it seems to have been after the queen decided that one slipper without the other was no use to her. So she decided to nail it to a stick and put it in the garden. Then she saw her son playing with it. Before this occasion, by the way, King Froggy decided that it was getting a bit old-fashioned to live in a 300-year-old castle, and he hired builders to build a new one. The king had some land, and he agreed that he would give 2/3 to the builders to construct the new palace. Then, before he could move into the new palace, he died. And Froggy II began to live in the newly built palace, got married, and got himself a family, hired some servants, raised a garden, and, so to speak, began to live worry-free. Froggy met me at the theater during an intermission in the buffet. What a lover of food he was! He bought so much food, as if he was going to feast him at the buffet. We got to talk quite well, and I began to come to his royal diner for a cup of tea sometimes. That's why I know so much about them. So then, Froggy II decided to inspect the old castle, and he went there with some people. He took some things, including his father's toys, which became the decoration for his garden. And then, someone killed the chief servant for some reason. I told you before. Oh, it's 12 PM already. Okay, I'm talking too much. Get back to work.